Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Women in AI Networking Academic Career panel. We are so pleased that you are able to join us. This is the second panel that Women in AI organization organized, hoping to help our graduate students and postdoc fellows get some idea about this academic career path. And to start with, our Women in AI committee members will introduce ours first, and then I will give the agenda of today. Okay, let's start from me. I am Jiayu Mao, a PhD student in the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering at Ohio State University. I spent my first year at Penn State and then moved to Ohio State with my advisor. I work with Professor Eileen Yenner, and our lab's name is Inspire. Currently, I am interested in the interdiscipline between various communication and machine learning. We would like to see how the physical layer stuff can enhance machine learning performance or the opposite. Elaha?
Hello everyone, my name is Elaha Vedadi. I am a PhD student in the Electrical Engineering Department of the University of Illinois at Chicago under supervision of Professor Seferoglu. Nice meeting you all.
Okay, I'll go next. Hi everyone, I am Debashree Roy. I am a postdoc from Northeastern University. I work with Professor Kaushik Choudhury. And as GIO was mentioning, I am also working in the intersection domain of AI and wireless communication. And I'm also very excited to be here today to learn about career paths from all these distinguished professors. Julia?
Yeah, I will continue. Yeah, today we have an incredible lineup of panelists who are female professors in our AI Age Institute. We are pleased to have Professor Gauri Joshi from Carnegie Mellon University, Professor Elisa Bertino from Purdue University, Professor Mingyan Liu from University of Michigan, Professor Eileen Yenner from Ohio State University, and Professor Chunyi Peng from Purdue University for the discussion. We will let our panelists first introduce themselves and talking about their career path briefly and a little bit of what their day-to-day life is like as a faculty member. And the following, we will have an open discussion session, which it happens in an interactive way, which means that our hosts, Elaha and Debashree, will ask our prepared question first, followed by the question from the audience. And for the audience to do that, one way is you can wait until our host to pause to ask audience to ask questions, and you can directly, and at that time you can directly unmute yourself to directly ask to our panelists. Another way to do that is that you can use the chat box in on the bottom in the Zoom, and please feel free to type your questions anytime during the panel. Just keep them coming, and our host will notice them and pick some questions from the chat to ask as well. Now I would like to turn to our panelists to give a brief introduction about themselves. Professor Yenner, would you like to start first?
Sure. First, thank you very much for organizing this very important event. Also in a very special day. Today is in fact Women's Day, so this is very fitting. So I'm a professor at Electrical and Computer Engineering Department at The Ohio State University. I also have partial appointments at Industrial Engineering and Computer Science and Engineering. I have been in academia all of my post-PhD life, 22 years, and I quite like it. I am mainly in the area of wireless communication theory, next generation wireless communications, and information theory. Thanks to the Institute, I'm also dabbling a little bit in learning as it interfaces with communications and networking. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Yinner. Next, Professor Alisa Bertino.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Very pleased to meet you. So I'll introduce myself the reverse order. So I studied in Pisa, and then I was for 10 years at the National Research Institute in Pisa. But during that time, I spent 1 year as a postdoc at IBM Research in California. Then I spent another year in Texas, in Austin. I was kind of going back and forth between Italy and the US. Then, to my surprise, I must say, in 1990, I won the Italian selection for becoming a full professor, which is a professor in Italy. So, and I was quite young. I was 32 years old. So I was kind of jumped into academia at the level of professor, having to get funding, do everything, train students at the University of Genoa. Then, for personal reason, I moved to the University of Milan in 1993, and then I became department head, which was an interesting experience. The department had 60 professors fighting all the times, and they like to talk a lot, like a lot of Italians. So since that experience, I refused, even today, I refuse to even consider becoming a head. Perhaps in the US is better. But then I was in Milan, and then in 2004, Purdue asked me if I would consider a position as a professor at Purdue. I say, yeah, perhaps I may want to do that because I like to be in the US. And so I got a leave of absence, moved to Purdue. After 3 years, I resigned from the University of Milan. To the biggest surprise of the Italian academic community, so they're getting a professor position is quite difficult. Seeing somebody who just quit, resigns, really people couldn't believe, okay? And since then I have been at Purdue. So my research area is currently, has been really for many years, the cybersecurity. Recently I've been working more on security of wireless networks, but my career really started on database management system. So it was very far away from security. So that's about myself.
Thank you. Professor Gauri Joshi.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for the invitation to be on the panel. I'm Gauri Joshi. I am an assistant professor at Carnegie Mellon University in the Electrical and Computer Engineering department. I've been here for almost 5 years now. It's been a fantastic ride so far. Hopefully it continues that way in the future. Before joining CMU, I spent 1 year as a research staff member at IBM Research. And before that, I did my PhD at MIT. My research at MIT was on coding and queuing theory applied to distributed computing. Since starting as a faculty member, I'm continuing that research, and also I've expanded it to work on federated learning algorithms. So broadly, my research is about scalable algorithms for distributed settings.
Thanks. Professor Chen Yipeng.
Okay, yeah. So hello, everyone. Great to see everybody. I'm currently associate professor at the Department of Computer Science at Purdue, and my main research is about like 4G, 5G networks. And if I really count my footprint, and I can say several cities. For example, I think I started, like everything from Beijing and from China, and get my bachelor and master degree there. And then I work, actually in the Microsoft Research Asian for 4 years before I come to US for PhD degree. And then after that, I moved to UCLA and for PhD. And after I got my PhD, and I joined Ohio State University. And a few years later, I actually joined the Purdue University. And then now, this is my footprint. So there are two things that I want to highlight. The first one is, I always say, I live in the different cities, from the super big city from Beijing, and then moved to Los Angeles, and then moved to Columbus, and then eventually I moved to the West Lafayette. So I likely know actually a lot of experience actually in the different cities. This is living. And the second one is for working is working in the research lab, kind of industry. Of course, I also have internship at the different research lab. I also work for academy, and then both experience actually make me feel actually find what I like most. So this is why I stay in academic. Yeah, so these two things actually interesting about myself. Yeah, good to see everybody.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Our last panelist, Professor Mingyan Liu.
Mingyan, you're mute.
Yeah, so yeah, I am currently with the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. We're driving distance from Columbus. I obtained my PhD in electrical computer engineering from University of Maryland, College Park in 2000. My thesis was in communication networks. I worked a lot on the early days of the internet protocol over long pipes like the satellite. My training was mostly applied probability, using tools from there to understand network performance, resource allocation. I have largely followed the thread of performance modeling, resource allocation. I have been gradually adding to the tools that I use. I increasingly use more tools from stochastic control, optimization, game theory, and incentive mechanisms to look at more resource allocation problems in multi-user distributed systems. Most recently, a kind of a chance encounter with data got me into just using basic machine learning techniques, but to analyze a not commonly studied set of data, which is internet measurement data. And that kind of got me into cyber risk quantification, cybersecurity more general, and in particular, the use of incentive mechanisms to understand what policies we can design to encourage better security behavior, adoption of security products, and so on. I went straight from grad school to a professor's position. I actually never wanted to be a professor. I actually never wanted a PhD. I wanted to leave after master's degree. My master's advisor talked me into it, so I stayed for a PhD, but I actually never wanted to be a professor. I thought at the time, writing papers for a living was a very dreary existence. But I have come to, so me trying the academic position was very much, I don't want to call it chance, but it was something that just came up like that, was not planned. But I really love the freedom, the space this job affords us, the ability to explore what we are interested in, and the ability to work with students. We get old, right? That's a monotonic process, but there is this renewal element with every year new batch of students. So I really enjoyed that aspect. I'm gonna stop here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for our panelists to share their stories. Now I will hand over to Aleja to start our today's panel questions.
Okay, I'm gonna start with our first panelist, Professor Yener. What do you like most about being a professor?
So you can't keep asking me the first, right? So you got to mix it up a little bit. But what do I? Maybe I'm gonna repeat Mingyan a little bit. The freedom is something that's very important in your job, that you are set sort of for life to do. So for me, that's perhaps the most appealing element is the freedom, is that effectively you don't have a boss, right? So you are in a sort of a path of tenure track and then promotions and so forth, but really no one's telling you what to do. And to me, that's something that's very valuable. Not everybody's cup of tea. Some people are much more comfortable with belonging to an ecosystem where someone kind of guides them. When you're a professor, you're kind of a one-person enterprise, at least in the beginning. Kind of trying to figure out your research program and acquiring students and making sure that you're working on the problems that you want to work on while simultaneously being useful to the science community and so on. So it is a little bit of a startup, I would say, that mode. And that kind of continues, well, for most people until they die. So it's kind of a continuous mode of being super busy and overwhelmed, and that's part of it. But for me, it's not something that I would trade for anything, due to this independence and being able to make something of yourself by your own motivation, rather than someone else kind of telling you what to do. I will add that I've never had a real job in my life. I don't consider my job a job. It's a passion, except for a 3-month internship at Lucent Bell Labs, which actually kind of, at the conclusion of which I've decided this is what I want to do and nothing else. So sometimes that kind of calibration also helps to figure out what it is you don't want to do versus what you want to do. Anyway, I'll stop here.
Thank you very much. For Professor Bertino, the same question. What do you like the most about being a professor?
Elise,
I really share what Eileen and Mingyan have already said. In my case, of course, what happened is that in Italy, there were no interesting jobs in industry, so that was a fact. Then when I went to the IBM Research Lab, that was nice, actually, and after 3 months, they offered me a permanent position. But then I said, okay, if I stay here, I will have to work 4 years on the same topic, even though a research topic. And I thought it was a bit boring, because I like really to kind of look at different things and so forth. So because of that, I declined this. I went back to Italy. And I really like academia because I consider this not to be a job, to be honest. I feel myself to be lucky that I have something which I don't call it a job, okay? Think about the people instead who have to do jobs that they don't like, but really allows you to contact and discuss, interact with many different people, forces you to look around. I'm always impressed by the progresses in our area. I feel so excited to be in this area, and being a professor is a very good place to really, witness, enjoy, and be surprised by the progresses we are making.
Thank you very much. Professor Joshi, the same question.
Sure. So let me say something different. Like I share what the previous panelists said already. So something that I want to add is I think being a professor gives me like a parallelism benefit along the lines of my research on distributed systems. So if I was in the industry, I would be working on maybe 1 or 2 projects, and I would be doing all the literature survey, idea generation, implementation, etc. But being a professor, I get the chance to work with amazing students who do all those actual work, and they come and teach me all these new ideas and tell me about the existing literature, problems and solutions. So I think I really enjoy that. So I can work on 5-6 different projects at the same time and get to learn from amazing students rather than working on one project in the industry.
Thank you very much. And Professor Peng, the same question. What do you like most about being a professor?
I think they already taught a lot of things, so maybe let me add something different. And I hope this also answers this question. So first one, I don't think academic is good for everyone. So this is my first answer. And at my beginning, like Mingyan, as my first choice from graduate school, I never considered about PhD. And I didn't want to go for PhD. Of course, it means I didn't want to go for academic for sure. And I just said I'm pretty lucky. It's because I joined a company and then I work actually in the research lab. Then I had the chance to likely know how research runs. And then they opened my mind. And so eventually, which forced me to kind of want to do the academic for several reasons. The first one is, at the beginning, I didn't know what to mean that, but later I really have knowledge and I have the feel about actually what mean the research academic means. And I feel for young people, this is very common. For example, at the 20s, you are forced to make a decision to say, what is the life you want in the coming 20 years. But actually at the moment when you make a decision, you have no clue actually what does it mean. Or sometimes we feel we know what it means, but actually eventually turns out you didn't know what it means. So we have to change our mind because we have no knowledge about this mean that. So I feel the very important thing is we need to choose carefully about, like what we like most. And we should be able to be responsible for this decision. So I feel at the very beginning, I decided not to go for PhD because I feel there's no need for me to have a PhD degree. And then later when I joined the research lab, and then my manager told me, Chun, unfortunately, if you want to work with the research lab, you have to get a PhD degree because otherwise you will be in trouble. So this is why I went for UCLA actually for my PhD. But at the beginning, when I joined the actual PhD program, I didn't want to go to academia. I just say, because this is kind of an entry bar, right? And then later, when I compare the job in academia and the industry lab, I never consider a job in the industry because I know I don't like that. But compared with the job in the industry lab and also the academy, I see the pros and the cons. Then I eventually feel I fit better into the academy. For example, I may not care too much about the salary or whatever. I'm more care about the freedom. This is why I say academy may not be good for everyone. And you may hear some complaints say, do you think the academy is a good deal or whatever? We never say academy is a job, we just say academy is a career, whatever. But I feel this is really think about what you like most. And I really feel, maybe my personality and also my what I like most actually fit better with the actual academy. Then just work hard to make it happen. Because it's not me, if I want, I can be that, right? So that's why once I have this idea, kind of like some 2 years, 3 years, kind of doing my PhD program, then just work hard to make it happen, period. This is how I switch from academia, so kind of from at the very beginning, didn't even go to for PhD, and then finally switch to academia. This is my journey.
Thank you very much. And Professor Liu, I know you already mentioned the answer of this question during the introduction, but if you have anything to add to your answer, please feel free.
Yes, I do want to add something, and I think this is not exclusive to academia. I want to say that the ability to be creative is incredibly important to one's sense of happiness and fulfillment. So people have done surveys across very different types of jobs and look at, what is the happiest job? Who tend to be in what job tend to be the happiest? And this is often very undervalued and it's not obvious. So people naturally think, okay, it must be the types of jobs that pay the most or the types of jobs that gives you the the greatest ability to travel or flexibility. It emerged that the ability to be creative is actually very, very important to one's happiness. And so on that, I will say, you can find those jobs in industry, but in academia, because as Eileen and others have mentioned, you have control in what you do by and large. And so that ability is very much under your control. And I think that is by far, I think is a very important part. I want to highlight this because I think it oftentimes flies under the radar, right? I think it's very easy to immediately think about compensation. Okay, we don't get paid very well. Okay, what else? I think this is, and the other reason I want to highlight this is we're engineers, right? I think engineers are not necessarily first and foremost being associated with creativity, not the kind that you would associate with artists, composers, designers. The truth is, we are involved in design day in, day out. We work with engineered systems, and human elements, especially in AI, machine learning system, is becoming very, very important factor. So I just want to point that out. And I think all of us probably agree, that is a very important element. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I would like to ask the audience, if you have any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself or type your question in the chat.
Yeah, so maybe we can move to the next question now. Yeah, I think we got very insightful comments and experiences from the first question. Okay, so here we have our set of questions, but right now we just got one question from the audience, Nilofer. So she's asking, can you also talk about the negative aspects of academic jobs? So the negative aspects of academic jobs. So anyone want to volunteer from the panelists to answer that?
I can start.
Okay, Lisa. Yes,
it's not that I see negative aspects. Perhaps sometimes I feel that our work, yes, it has an impact on academia and education, but sometimes I feel that in a lot of solutions we propose perhaps will never be applied to something in the real world, okay? In part, of course, one has also to understand that, based on what we do, other people can build on what we do, and eventually something really important, useful will emerge, okay? Sometimes I have this feeling that I say, perhaps in industry, I could have had a more direct impact. But other than that, I think, I don't see any negative aspects in myself.
Okay, anyone else? Gauri, you wanna?
Yeah, I can add something. So one thing that I feel is quite different between academia and industry is the work-life balance part. In academia, at least for me, my work and life, there's not a clear boundary between them. I think of it more like a lifestyle, that this is what, like, I want to do research, publish papers, etc. And I'm pretty much thinking about that all the time. That said, academia does give the flexibility in terms of time. So like we can, in some days you could work on a weekend and not work on a weekday, and that's fine. It's up to us to decide that. So if this is the kind of lifestyle you would prefer, I think academia would be a good fit. Industry does give more work-life separation, I believe.
Yep.
I also want to add something else. Yeah, so I want to say, not the negative side, I want to say challenge of academic. So for industry, you usually will have strong teamwork because you are part of the bigger project. But in academic, especially if you start your career or whatever, and you like your boss, and you have to handle too many things. So it means actually, especially, for junior and also for all the professors, I think, you have to work like a boss. You have to know a lot of things. You have to master a lot of skills. Of course, the department will not, community will not require you have to be great in every skill, but only speaking, it indeed requires actually individual, especially the PI, right? The professor have to be great in many, many skills. And sometimes I feel for some people, we may good at some skills. This is the reason why we pick academic, but that doesn't mean we are great at everything. So this action will sometimes feel very stressful because in industry, you can say, I can team up with this person, another person, you can count on big team. But in academic, even we do encouraging cooperation a lot of, but we do require more independent work. So this is also sometimes quite stressful, especially at the very beginning, while we are not so skilled in everything, but actually we're required to be acting like a great boss. So that will be kind of stressful thing. I think this is also the reason why it's maybe difficult for us to have some work-life balance, especially at the beginning. But once we gradually know more skills and kind of develop the style to work in academic, then the things will become much better. But unfortunately, it is indeed hard at the very beginning. Yeah.
Can I add a comment? Yeah. Perhaps given my age, I feel that the idea of trying to be perfect is the wrong idea to start. I don't, because, it doesn't make sense, to be honest. Nobody's perfect. And sometimes people have a different attitude, personalities, and that is very important. You need to know what you are good at and leverage that. I might also partially disagree with Gauri. Let's introduce some discussion otherwise, okay? Personally, I think people in industry have to work a lot, to be honest. I'm not sure they have the separation that you mentioned. Now, we don't know, but perhaps we should have a panel with a few people from industry so we can ask them. But looking at my students, we do keep in touch, they work in industry. They seem to work much more than I do, to be honest, okay? Because also we can leverage a lot of students, as you say, they have to do everything on their own. They have deadlines, pressure. No, for us, yeah, we can miss a deadline for a paper, but with so many conferences, that's, putting things in perspective, of course. That's what I want to, but, that's my point.
If I may add just to that, sorry.
No, Eileen, go ahead.
I was just going to say, perhaps the distinction isn't, one side would have to work harder than the other, but really, what is it that you're working for? When you're in industry, you are working for the company and its bottom line, no matter how much of a research position it is. At the end of the day, that is, you need to somehow contribute to that. So all the goals are around that. Whereas when you're in academia, as I mentioned, it is really a perpetual startup mode. So you are working for yourself. And I think that's the distinction. It's not that one side has to work harder than the other. It's really, what is it that you're working for? And I will just say, and this is controversial, but I'll say it, I think the work-life balance thing is a little bit overrated. I don't claim that I have that, but I also don't feel like we need to have that that much. Anyway, I'll stop.
Yeah, I think I'm glad that my question generated discussion. Go ahead, Mingyan.
So I was going to say something very similar to what Eileen just said. I think the key difference is in academia, we work for ourselves. And again, that point is sometimes obscure, right? You say, well, I'm writing papers here, or I'm writing papers in an industry research lab. there is a big difference. You get to decide what to write about, how to write it, what students to put on the project, and so on and so on. Industry, again, I think by and large, at the end of the day, you don't get the credit. You're just a piece, in that big machinery, seriously. And I think some of the work-life balance, if there's any advantage, actually is derived from that. I had a startup, so I had 2-year corporate experience. It's because at the end of the day, when I go home, when I leave, I say, I don't care anymore. It's somebody else's problem. Why? I'm not going to pick up that phone call. I'm not going to check my email. I already told you I'm going on 2-day vacation, and that's that. I'm entitled to it, right? It is because I don't own it that gives me that attitude. I don't care. Well, I mean, I could choose to, but it's easier to take that attitude and say, there's a separation. Friday night is my own time. When you're in this job in academia, you do care because it is your own enterprise. It's your own initiative. You're working for yourself. At the end of the day, it is, whether it works or not, it's your thing, right? Your baby. So I think that really is the key difference. And to Gauri's point and what Eileen mentioned, I actually have had faculty tell me in exactly these words that being a faculty actually helped them be a parent because of flexibility. Yes, we don't, the joke is oftentimes that we have no time for anything else, but we can decide what those times are, right? Or some variation of that. So especially during the last 2 years with all kinds of childcare challenges, and we have single parents among my colleagues. Yes, there are these class meeting times we may commit to, but otherwise it actually gives them a lot more flexibility that I would say most people don't get in the industry. So
I like to go back to the point that Eileen and Miriam did make. I don't fully agree. I agree that in academia, you can say each person is a single enterprise, but that gives a very bad messages to our junior colleagues, okay? No, it's not like that, okay? I think I work for my students because I want them to succeed, and I really am keen to help my junior colleagues, especially women. So don't think, because that's the reality. It's not that really you can say just work for, I mean, really your service to the university, mentoring is also very important. And I feel that if my colleague succeeds, my department is better, I will benefit, okay? So,
completely agreed. I
don't
think
sure academia is a very nice place.
No. I don't think, Eileen, I meant to say everybody is their own island. No, what I meant at least is about ownership. Okay, either being part of the team or my own project, I own it. I own some of it. That is very clear because nobody else, outside of the stakeholders own it. I think in the corporate world, it's very different. The biggest sign that you don't own it is because you don't actually get to control whether the project will live or die, right? Anything can be canned just like that, and you're moved to something else, and it happens, once, twice. Yeah, it's easy to see. You know what? Yeah, I'll give it what I have, but at the end of the day, it's not my thing. I don't know. I'm trying to be provocative here. The point is, the thing is, I think we absolutely have teams. We serve each other. We benefited from other people's mentorship, but we collectively own this enterprise. There is a fundamental difference in how academic institution is structured versus how corporate is structured. That I think is a fundamental difference.
So
that was exactly my point. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, we have a co-ownership in academia, so it's more owned by several people. Yeah, I think that's nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I totally agree about the ownership aspect that keeps us motivated to work longer because we really enjoy the work and we feel we own it. Yeah.
I think we actually should, we never say, deny actually the benefit and the pros of the academic because we all actually already vote by feet, right? So we pick the academic because we like academic more, differently because something, we like. But I just say, Glory maybe just want to mention, she definitely formally picked this academic, but, she may still stressful as the current stage. This is kind of true. Yeah, but actually I feel maybe for other job, they have different kind of stress, right? Different kind of stress. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, everyone. I think that was a great question from Nilofer. It really intrigued a very interesting conversation among all of us. Okay, so I'll move to the next question from us. I think many of you already have answered this, but still I'll ask. So how and when did you decide whether to have a career in academia or industry after getting your PhD? So Juni, do you wanna, I think you already mentioned, but still you wanna go first?
I actually already, share my experience. I feel I knew most of my friends who actually just like me and say, direct from graduate school and then to PhD program and then to professor and then kind of course, to have some kind of interns as, summer interns as some short-term summer interns as industry. But at the very beginning, I was kind of, didn't want to go for PhD. I feel 5 years too scary. And, I feel I may be too old after I graduated from the PhD program. So this at the very beginning, I'm very actually was quite of strongly actually against this idea. I even actually told my master advisor, say, no, I didn't want to go for PhD. I just want to find a job and work and make money and make a living, period. That's actually exactly, my idea like some 15 years ago. And I think one thing changed my mind is, at the very beginning, I said, when I was young, when I was 20s, actually, I had a rough idea about what the job about. I likely know how this work works about. But only when I joined that, I will realize I may change my mind, change my understanding about the job. So when I joined the research lab, I honestly speaking, I'm very, very lucky because I work almost one of the best places actually in China at the moment. But even so, after a few years, I realized the limitation or something I may not like with industry lab. You can say, at the moment, I may not realize it's ownership. I may not realize it's because of freedom or whatever. But it turns out, we have so many rights. It could be the reason about freedom or the ownership or whatever. But I just, at the moment, I realized, oh, yeah, we have to do the research actually, topic divided by the company. You have to deal with some kind of the, how to say, like performance evaluation to protect your ability of to make revenue for company. And you also need to deal with some kind of the office politics or whatever. So I just realized it's hard. So I would like to, I think the main reason for me, so maybe I'm not sure it's for others, is more like, because I do not like industry. So I speak to say, yeah, let me look for something else. I'm not saying, I cannot do industry. I just personally, if I can choose, I would like to choose not to go for industry. So this could be the main reason. I think that this is what I say. It depends on personality. Of course, I know many of my friends enjoy industry a lot. So that I do not mean, you should not go for industry. Just a personal experience is very, very different. So just for me, I know myself much better. Then I realize actually maybe industry job is not a good fit for me. And then to make a living, I needed to think about something else. So researcher and or maybe academic could be my only way I can go. Yeah, and maybe others can share me and say their story.
Yeah, thank you. So we have another question from the audience, so we'll just move to that. The question is from Ness. Could you, so most significant challenges that you faced in academia and what counsel would you would give to the promising young academics about the pitfalls to avoid, so that we can prepare the young academic aspirants, which challenges or pitfalls if we want to pursue academic career. Okay, so Mimian
I'm happy to go ahead. So one of the biggest challenge I think is to deal with rejections. Paper rejections, proposal rejections, and I'm happy to report they don't go away. You know, when I was younger, the challenge to work through it yourself. Now I'm older, the challenge is how to help my students work over it, because they matter now to them more than they do me, and it can be very hard. I think the challenge sometimes is to you have to look past some of the comments. They can be mean and nasty, and sometimes I would say flat out wrong, right? I will say that when you do the review, you should keep that in mind and do your due diligence. But you know, given how many papers are being generated on an annual basis, review qualities are just going to vary. So it is important to keep things in perspective. I think the worst thing that can happen is to let these negative feedback impact your own conviction in the validity of the problem and your method. And it's a tough balance, because you know, I'm not here to say after 3, 4, 5, which has happened to me, rejections, do I continue to do this, or say this is it, I better try something different. It's a challenge, and I don't have a good solution.
We have one more
add to
question.
that.
Okay,
So something that I find very challenging, I don't think I've overcome this yet, is learning to say no to many things like service responsibilities, reviews. I think like as a junior faculty member, and often as a woman, it's easy to just like be nice and say yes to everything, but I think we need to learn how to resist that and choose service responsibilities or other events that actually impact our career and bring value to our career and life. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges for me.
So
Can I
related
add
to Gauri's,
can I add perhaps to both Mingyan and Gauri's comments? We should also look at this from the perspective of gender a little bit, right? So all of these challenges, rejection, being a junior faculty and beyond, as well as service responsibilities, etc. There's slightly different ways that female faculty would perceive them versus male faculty. This is just perhaps a little bit anecdotal, but I will say that we tend to perhaps care a bit more, and also although things have changed quite a bit, so I do want to encourage today's generation. Things are much better than they were 30 years ago when I started grad school, and 22 years ago when I started tenure track. Things are much better, but there is still a clear different standard between genders, if you ask me. So in that sense, we have to modulate the rejections with that in mind. Same with the service posts and let's say recognitions and such. There may be more difficulty in saying no, also in some cases, because that is part of your career that you're you have to build, and perhaps at least some decades ago, it actually helps you in establishing yourself in your field. Now, I'm happy to see, just looking at this panel from within this project, it's no longer the case that you're on your own. But I do wanna just tell you my experience. I was the only faculty member who was female for a number of years in a faculty of 40. So that's the sort of, that brings up a very different set of challenges that perhaps we experience, and that's disappearing, but perhaps we're not there yet in terms of gender equity. So I guess this is my way of trying to be a little bit provocative and bring this gender issue to the panel.
I agree, but what is very important is to be put the things in perspective and be optimistic. For some reason, the rejection never affected me since I was 23 years old. My idea was, even when I went to IBM, somebody told me, if you are a woman, you are not considered equal. You are considered. If you are a foreigner, you are. And then this colleague looked at me, you are a woman and foreigner, so you are really kind of at the bottom. But somehow I feel okay, I have a rejection. But then I say, will I die? Will I get sick? Nothing will happen to me. I learn from this, move on, and improve on myself, which I still do today. I recognize mistakes I do. But it is true, you have to be very self-confident, because that's, if you are not, then people will tell, kind of, you start wondering, is because I am a woman, and this will make you always think that this is the only reason. Okay? There are those factors, but at the end, if you are confident, and believe me, in my experience, when I was 23 years old, I started doing research. I would go to conferences, and senior people told me, what you want to do is wrong. But I kept doing anyhow. And then after, those things, those ideas were right. So if you are good, you believe in yourself, you will succeed, okay? And at the end, I think, nothing tragic will happen if a paper is rejected. Okay? It's not that you are going to die or anything. So otherwise, have this attitude, put things in perspective. Because otherwise, I feel a bit bad for my students, because I tell them the same thing over and over. And I say, nothing is going to happen to you. Be optimistic and go ahead, and that's it.
Yeah, completely agree,
I want to provide a minor counterpoint to what Gauri said about saying no. I would say be careful about saying no. The reason, no, I think it's absolutely true. You don't want to drown yourself in meaningless services and so on. At the same time, I will say we are not perfect in our ability to predict which service will turn out to be rewarding. Sometimes maybe the work itself is blah, but it gave you the opportunity to actually meet and get to know somebody well, and that somebody turned out to be in a position to provide critical support, right? I think all these are unknown. My general mentality is, I think one should keep one's options open. I think it's important to know what your out is. That is, okay, if I say yes to this, and if it turned out to be the worst case scenario, do I have a way to get out of this? I think oftentimes what happens when you say yes too often and then you kill yourself is not necessarily because you said yes, but by virtue of saying yes, you end up also doing the work. That is actually not, the two are not equivalent, right? You can say yes to be, and I have seen so often from colleagues, they say yes and they join the committee, they don't do squat, right? And so I think our problem, if I were to put a gender spin on this, is not we said yes, it's, well, after we said yes, we feel obligated to do stuff. That I think I would advocate. Don't necessarily say no, but put some separation, between saying yes and doing the work. I hope this does not get misconstrued, but I think these two are different things.
Yeah, once in a while, I agree with what Ming-Yan said. I fully agree with you. Ladies, remember, a lot has to do with people, because you can be in a committee where you have a nice people. Sometimes it really depends on the other people. So gather intelligence and information. So when you say yes or no, you at least have an idea, what the people could be. And usually you have a mentors and you get to know the people around you. So that, because it's not that one can always work. There are people with whom you don't necessarily will work well. And it's not that you must avoid the people that are too toxic for you, okay? So learn to understand the people with whom you deal with.
I agree 100%. This is outstanding advice indeed. So just to add, saying yes is okay, but saying yes and having to do the 100% of the work, which happens often, especially when you're junior, that's something that we should try to avoid.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you everyone. So yeah, so this question which audience asked, that was actually our question as well, to talk about the gender inequality in the academia. So we all got very interesting perspective from all of you. So that was our last question. And please, we got some other questions from the audience as well, but we can take them offline later, because we are approaching to the end of this panel. We unfortunately have only 1 hour. So I'll ask Jiaru to take back the platform and please carry forward.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. It's time to close our today's panel. I just want to thank you all so much for participating in our discussion. And I would like to also appreciate our panelists who are so sincere and generous to share their experience and give advices for us to pursue an academic career. And it's so helpful for graduate students like me and the postdoc attendees. Personally, to be honest, I really enjoyed a lot and benefit a lot from today's discussion. And our Women in AI organization will organize our other networking events or panels in the future. Please pay attention and join us if you are interested. Julia, do you have anything to add?
No, thank you very much for everybody, especially you guys. So you organized it. Thank you very much, and all the panelists. So it was a great panel. Thank you very much. And I think I can keep the Zoom link open if you would like to stay and interact more. Otherwise, thank you.